Hey everybody, it's Refresh, and I am back to cover September 20th through September 26th. These are all of the things that I found on YouTube that I thought were interesting. We'll start with music. So there are a trio of music videos that I'd like to talk about here. The first one is from the band Coreyah, or Coreyah, and the song is 떠난다, or Escape. This particular band has been a favorite of mine since I discovered them back in the day. They are a bit of a fusion band in the sense that they take folk music from around the world and mesh it with Korean traditional folk music. And so a lot of their music is a fun blend of these two. And while not everybody can blend Korean traditional music with other types of music very well, I think Coreyah does a good job. This is not their best song, but I think it is a good example of their music in general, and they have recently released a new album, and so this is a track from the album. Let's give it a listen. And that is Coreyah's 떠난다. So if you're interested, this and every other video that I'll be featuring in this wrap-up is going to be available in the description box below, so you can check that out for a link. And I'll also have timestamps in the description box below so that you can skip to whatever seems most interesting to you. Next, we have something in between, like an R&B and a hip-hop song from Woshi, and it's IDGAS. And this one, I found this one not to be particularly pleasing to me, but I thought it was interesting because I found that the artist, kind of like if you've ever heard Jazzy Fact, which is a Korean hip-hop group as well, this particular artist tends towards a bit more of an art style influence to their style, and so I find that their singing and more specifically their rapping and the way that the rapper will run his voice to be something different, and I thought that was interesting enough to highlight here. So I'll play just a little bit so you can see what I mean. 네가 뭐라 해도 갈 길은 내가 정해야겠어. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? I know 그 느낌, 그 waving touch. You know that shit. Okay, so there was a bit of swearing in that, but as you can see, the rapper has this like soft and floaty melody he infuses into his rap, and so I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't think this is necessarily the kind of music that I want to listen to regularly, but it definitely caught my ear at the time, and so I thought it was worth pointing out for those of you who might be into this kind of thing. Next is just some more dreamy pop from Lazy Child, and the song is 여름밤, or Summer Night. You can see that down here, and I will play a little bit for you. I just like this one. It's not special, but I just liked it. It's very captivating arrangement and very lush sounding music here. That is 여름밤 by Lazy Child. Alright, now we are done with music videos and we're going to other sorts of music related videos, not music videos. In this case, On Stage, Naver's On Stage is celebrating their 10th anniversary, and so for this they are creating a series of programs where in this particular case they are bringing back some artists that they've had on their live performance stages, and they are having them compete. And what the idea of this particular competition is, each of the artists are competing one-on-one. In this particular case, you have 스텔라장 on the left and 브로콜리너마저 or Broccoli U2 on the right. And these two artists are going to compete in a songwriting competition. And so they have somebody that calls in, and they're going to be giving some parameters in terms of they're writing to this person's request. And they'll have 30 minutes to write a song and then perform it for the caller. And then the caller will decide which one that they like the best. And that's pretty much it. And so I'm not going to play the actual show for you, but it's sort of in the Korean variety style format. But it's a music show. And it's very light competition. I think it's a friendly competition between the bands. And so this isn't exactly one of those where somebody gets cut and it's very dramatic or anything like that. It's just a very friendly chat between the artists. They show off a little bit of who they are, what they do, and then they follow the artist through the process of making their music. And so I thought this was a nice little listen. I do really like both 스텔라장 and 브로콜리너마저, so I particularly enjoyed this episode. And so I'm going to actually show you cuts from the songs that they made in the course of 30 minutes, and so we'll go on to that. So here is 스텔라장's 나의 태양, or My Sun. I'll just play a little bit.
오늘의 흐린 날씨가 내일까지 개지 않아도 보이지 않는 태양은 어딘가 밝게 빛나고 있어.
And so that was 스텔라장's 나의 태양, and now I will show you a little bit from 브로콜리너마저's. They wrote 그러게 말야, and that is kind of like, that's what I'm saying. And so I'll play a little bit of their song that they wrote in 30 minutes for the caller.
어른들은 참 좋은 말을 하고 대신 싸워주지는 않아. 그런 사람들이 무슨 위로니.
I've always loved 브로콜리너마저, and this song also doesn't disappoint. It really surprised me that they were able to write a song of this quality in just 30 minutes. I think that this would easily fit on any of their albums. And yes, if you've heard 브로콜리너마저 before, this song is going to sound incredibly familiar to you because Yoon Do-kwon and Chandi and Ryuji tend to write very similar songs to what they've written before. But this was very comforting, just like every other 브로콜리너마저 song that I've heard before. So, big fan. Another find this week is Hi-Lite Records' Legacy, the documentary. So Hi-Lite Records is a Korean hip-hop record label that I have been following since their inception and since their birth out of the remnants of Soul Company. And they are releasing a documentary kind of talking about their past and their present. And so if you are a fan of Korean hip-hop, and in particular Hi-Lite Records, then this is a good little introduction. It's not quite a hagiography. I think that they do cover some of the struggles, but they gloss over some of the issues that they did have. And so it's not like the deep dive journalistic integrity type thing, but it's not quite a celebration, but it is a look back into the history of Hi-Lite music. And you'll see, if you've been following Korean hip hop, more than just Hi-Lite artists here. You will actually talk to artists of other labels and past Hi-Lite artists as well as current Hi-Lite artists. So if you're interested in Korean hip hop, I think that this is a pretty good watch. As with the on-stage videos, this is not yet subtitled, and so you're not going to be able to get translations right away, and so you might have to wait for them, or maybe they won't even show up. So this is probably just for Korean speakers only, but pretty cool stuff. Here's a little clip.
계속 앨범을 준비하고 있었어요. 근데 이제 1년이 넘게 제가 곡을 막 30곡, 40곡 이렇게 많이 만들어 놨는데.
So that's Palo Alto talking about how he was trying to prepare his album, and the company that he was with was not yet ready to release it. And so that is a little piece of this documentary. There's a lot of floating heads, and as you watch, there's also a lot of B-roll footage from concerts and things like that. But it is predominantly just talking about the history of Hi-Lite Records. They also released the second part of this as well. If you're interested in either of those, check them out. Finally, for music, we have BLACKPINK releasing their 13th episode of 24365, which is a kind of variety show with the K-pop supergroup. So this particular episode is continuing in a series of games that they've been playing since I think the last episode. There might have been another episode before that, but they have a dance contest and a little contest where they're trying to like pass a ball with spoons in their mouths. And here's a little clip from this.
Blackpink is the revolution.
So in this particular clip, you have Jisoo dancing like an awkward, weird, derpy little dance, and everybody is reacting to that. And if you are a fan of BLACKPINK, then I think this is for you. This does have English subtitles, I believe. Next up, I have some Korean comedy to show you. These are a trio of hidden camera comedy videos. And so this particular group is called Comic Mart. And this isn't their best video, but I'm featuring it because it's sort of indicative of what they do. They basically set up and they have a conversation. And it's usually amusing enough to draw in their bystanders. So in this case, we have two women that are listening, and eventually they're going to start talking, and it's going to be amusing, and they're going to start laughing. And oftentimes they'll start to interact with their bystanders that are watching, but in a friendly, funny way. And sometimes they do hunting, which is a Korean word for basically picking up girls, but they're doing so in a funny way. And so they're not really trying to actually pick up the girls. And they're just doing it to make their funny little video here. So this is an example of kind of what they do. And I'll just play a little bit for you.
나이다.
아, 이 정도 해야지.
형은 진짜 완벽해. 형은 진짜 완벽한데.
맞아?
딱 한 가지가 에라야.
뭔데?
얼굴.
어?
형 얼굴 에라야. 형은 여자를.
So this particular bit here has this gentleman on the right here saying that the gentleman on the left is perfect, but there's one problem. And he says, it's your face. And that causes the girl over there to stop and laugh, or try to stifle a laugh at the very least. This particular video doesn't have English subtitles, but some of their videos do. And I like a lot of their hunting-oriented videos because they just seem to be giving the women that are listening and then interacting with them a really enjoyable time. So check out their stuff. They're Comic Mart, and they're doing pretty well. They have like 400,000 something subscribers. Next, we have 투마리, which I think is translated to two guys. And this is not their best of these videos, but I do like this series of videos. And so this is Scary, a Woman You Don't Know Prank, which is a terrible translation. This does have English subtitles, by the way, unlike the Comic Mart video I previously highlighted. But what they're doing with each other is they're telling each other a series of scary stories, and the stories are engaging, and they draw in their bystander, which is this woman in this particular case. And the stories often have funny endings, and so that causes a nice little turn for both us as the listener as well as the bystander. And then at the end of each video, they do something to frighten their eavesdropper. It's not like a terrible fright, but just like a minor fright. And so this is one example of that. So we'll listen to a little bit of them.
너무 무서운데 그냥 화장실 문을 열어봤어. 아니야 다니까 인기척이 막 들리는 거야. 그 무서운데 막 한마디를 하나씩 열어보니까 없어.
And so as you can see, this guy is telling the story and it's drawing in the attention of this viewer here. And I'm not going to give away the punchline of this particular one, but that's basically how this goes. I really like this series. This is their 23rd of this series, and they've done so many of them, and many of them are pretty funny. So check them out. This is 투마리, and this is one that I just discovered this week, and this group is called 뜬금포. I don't know what that translates to off the top of my head. And they do a variety of different types of hidden camera comedy bits. This particular one is basically detailing a new couple and kind of like grossing out their observers by being super, super cheesy romantic. And so we'll check this one out. This does have English subtitles as well.
왜 이렇게 성의가 없어? 아니 고민할 게 뭐가 있어. 다 너랑 같이 있는 건데.
조금 더 가까이.
As you can see, the woman on the left is like, what the heck is going on here? Because he's just being super cheesy in his responses to the girl. Now, this group also does other types of comedy as well, but I found this particular one really funny because it's just like laying on the cheese really thick, and it's kind of funny to watch the woman's expressions as she like has to grapple with the fact that these two are being super, super lovey-dovey. All right, let's talk a little bit about trailers now. These are a set of trailers. I'm not going to actually play any of them because there's no need to, but these are a set of trailers that I found interesting this particular week. The first, we have WandaVision from Marvel that's going to be available on Disney+. And this is a series that follows the exploits of Wanda Maximoff and the Vision, who we last saw in Avengers Endgame. And, well, the Vision was dead at that point, but we saw Wanda as the Scarlet Witch doing her thing in that movie. And this is a new series that features the both of them in a very interesting, unusual, surreal kind of world that they find themselves in that seems to jump from one sitcom world to another sitcom world. And I thought that was very interesting in terms of the tone. This is very different from anything that Marvel has done so far with their cinematic universe or their TV universes. And I really like the unusual, playful, almost Lynchian tone that it has. And so I think it's a wonderful change of pace for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm definitely looking forward to this, especially since it has a bit of the tone of the comic book series, The Visions, which I thought was also quite impressive, at least in the first few issues that I was able to read. Then we have Netflix's Barbarians, which is a story of a battle between the Germans of the ancient past and the Roman Empire. And it's a pretty famous battle as far as battles go, but I don't really know that much about it. One thing that really caught my attention about Netflix's series or movie, I'm not sure whether it's a series or a movie, but what caught my attention about it is that the characters and the actors are actually speaking Latin and German. And I often find that a lot of these movies made by Americans especially just have them speak all English with accents, and I always find that really annoying. And so that they're actually speaking the languages of the people that they're supposed to be portraying is always drawing. But I'm also really curious about this history, so I'm looking forward to catching this at some point in the future. Then we have a dramatization of the trial of the Chicago 7. This is a significant historical event that is being dramatized, in particular dealing with war protesters and how they were treated in court and the ways that the government of Chicago sort of tried to railroad them out and caused a big international ruckus. And so I don't know if this movie's actually going to be good per se, but I think it is important to remember bits of history like this. And so kind of like Hidden Figures wasn't that great of a movie, but it was a very important movie in the fact that it reminded us of truths that we might have forgotten. And so like that, I think the trial of the Chicago 7 is something that I'm interested in watching just to know what about this slice of history. Even though it has been dramatized, it's not a documentary. The final Netflix trailer that I have is for David Attenborough, A Life on Our Planet, and this is by the documentarian that is probably best known for Planet Earth and its successors. David Attenborough is going to be talking a little bit here in this documentary series about the crises that we are creating and potentially endangering life on the planet as well as our lives on this planet. And so this is probably in the vein of An Inconvenient Truth in terms of the issues that we as human beings are going to be facing in the near and far-flung future. And I thought that these are some important issues, and David Attenborough has made a lot of wonderful nature documentaries, so I think it's worth giving his words a listen. And so I'm looking forward to this series or movie, as it were. This is the last bit that I have regarding movies and TV, and this is Film Crit Hulk, who is a film critic, and he has been doing a few YouTube videos here and there, and these have been video essays. In this particular case, he goes down into why Spider-Man Into the Universe works and is kind of breaking down scene by scene. And so you basically go through the entire movie, so there's spoilers all over the place, so don't watch this if you haven't seen the movie. But he basically gushes about how good this movie is. And if you like this movie, you might enjoy Film Crit Hulk gushing in a very long video essay about how good Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is. I really like this movie, so it was kind of fun to walk through memory lane watching bits of this movie with him. Finally, in terms of news, I have Asian Boss and Koreans and Filipinos discussing the hashtag CancelKorea movement. And this has Asian Boss, which is a street interviewing team, go and talk with Filipinos and Koreans about the hashtag CancelKorea debacle that appears to have happened on the internet between internet denizens of both Korea and Filipinos when a Filipino influencer displayed a tattoo that had the rising sun rays on it, and that caused a bit of a stir in Korea and then caused a bit of racism towards Filipinos to go all over the Korean internet, and so there was a bit of conflict there. I didn't even know that it was happening, so I thought that it would be interesting to highlight this particular video because it shows you that there are lots of things going on in different parts of the world in terms of conflict on the internet. So interesting video. It has English subtitles despite the fact that, you know, people are speaking Tagalog and Korean in it. And so if you're curious about this particular issue, give this video a listen. That is it for me for the week of September 20th. Let me know what you found this week in terms of music or movies or TV or trailers or news or what have you that you thought was interesting. Put links in the comments below and I'll check them out, and if they interest me, maybe I'll do a response video. If you found anything in this video interesting or helpful, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of these weekly roundups, I'm going to do a few more of these to see if these are actually worth doing. Hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.